Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with more Cosmonarchy casts, and today we are continuing coverage of Acropolis number 3's qualifying stages. Gauntlet Stage A will begin as far as coverage is concerned here, but Gauntlet Stage B is already open for signups. If you are interested in playing, you must sign up before we reach 12 entrants in the sign-up list. That's right, 12, by the way, is our limit. We have 5 so far as of the time of recording. Sign up in the Discord server, and there's, of course, a link to that in the description of this video, and you'll be able to participate. After Gauntlet Stage B, there is only one more stage to qualify to the biggest Cosmonarchy tournament known to mankind so far. So keep that in mind, and yeah, just wanted to let you guys know, get you guys up to speed. We're looking at Kenoli, the pumpkin Zerg in the bottom left of Serenity, a map by Biddy B with Jujic decorating, against TopRamen in the top right. He is our Silver Terran. And just so you guys know, I did already guess the colors earlier, but I guessed them correctly. And so even though I'm kind of re-guessing them, as in I started to record this and then something happens, I have to re-record the opening here. Just letting you guys know, I full transparency, okay? I did say it earlier, but yeah, I definitely guessed the colors accurately, correctly the entire time. I'm actually going to go ahead and put the camera hockeys on these little expansion nodes here because Kenoli's going for hatch first, and interesting stuff, little jousting at the worker. You know, with the double stockade opener, this could manifest into some kind of early action, because obviously Ramen is going to look at this hatch first on the low ground and think, damn, this is punishable. We'll see if he ends up doing that, but his worker's pretty wounded, so I don't know if we'll see anything out of that. The pool already a little bit over halfway complete. The timing on this has definitely not been figured out. I don't think anybody's doing this in practice. So as a Kagran comes down here, presumably for a Larvosk, let me just show you guys the pick ban for this series. So Ramen just picked Serenity, and we do have a Maverick coming in for Stim, so hold on. I guess I'll have to come back with that. It was Brainstorm is up next. That's the important part. So as the Maverick starts to Stim, it's caused us some Droleth Burrow. No casualties just yet. Ramen is indeed rushing while I'm trying to talk about the pick ban, man. But the fact that we get Brainstorm after this is very hype. We don't see it too often. Kenoli seems to be trying to chase away. He made the Kagra extend a little bit faster with the Kagra. Unfortunately, his Royal Cores go down early. I was just going to say, they could go after the Mason that was making the anchor this whole time, and this does look a little bit awkward for Kenoli, but he is making 4 pairs of quads. It's difficult to say that this one is going to be an impossible hold. I think Kenoli will actually be fine. It's just a question of how much damage Ramen can make in the meanwhile. He's already killed 2 workers. The Burrow coming out way later than it probably should have. Now the Mavericks have to get out of dodge and go into the anchor. So a trick that you can do, and people know this from StarCraft 1, but StarCraft 2 has a stim button on the bunker. I almost called it a barracks, which is funny. It automatically handles that. Now, we don't have handling for that here. Instead, you unload, stim, and then reload, and that's exactly what we do in StarCraft 1. Ramen knows this, but he's choosing right now to not stim. I wonder if there's a reason behind that. It's pretty easy to do the, I think it's like, it's either X or C for unload all on grid, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it's been a while since I've actually looked at the anchor. I could do it in game with muscle memory immediately, but you know, it's one of those things where you know it by feel, not by actual know, like when you're punching in for work at a shift or whatever. And you know, Kenoli's certainly punching Ramen back right now, as we have a absolute masterclass on why stim is very important for Mavericks versus these pool units. They got massacred over there, and I think a large portion of that is down to that fact that the anchor DPS wasn't factored into that fight. Now, Ramen is still trying to keep his opponent on the other side. Oh, he's gone for a Ministry behind this. This feels really risky. He's got a little bit of float here, but not as much as Kenoli. Kenoli just going to spend down for the... Oh, he got a little Burrow Trap here. That's a hype move from Kenoli. You know, Kenoli is never really the most, like, mechanical player in terms of, you know, his... And mechanics... Some people think mechanics means, like, kind of like raw micro skill, but it also translates to your macro in a big way. His APM and his EPM are not always the highest, but what matters here is that his strategery is on point, right? He's got all of the units burrowed in the spots that they need to be burrowed in order to unburrow and then immediately jump upon them, right? In StarCraft 1, you have to research all this stuff like stim and burrow. In Cosmonarchy, it's just rolled into the unit de facto. You have it by default. And Ramen needs to keep this contain up here in a big way, because otherwise, if this happens the way it's looking, where he's just going to get routed, what happens when this army moves across the map, man? He's got nothing on the choke, no Cestus, no anchor, nothing for defense. He's building a star pad, which is going to be late. You know, it's not going to help him on the fight, really. It could help him with an Ancial or something, but that's going to be a ways off, right? And a pretty big amount of Vespene in the process. He does have a Vulture coming, but it doesn't seem like it'll be done in time to put down any lobotomy mines. I think that he might get run over here. Kenoli being egoed back a little bit, aura'd back, I should say. ego is like the wrong word for that, but aura. You know, he's being like, oh, Terran are hard to actually break. I got to watch out for that. And Ramen needs to stim. He doesn't stim. He does not stim his Mavericks, and some of them weren't even attacking during that time. Wow, that is a slip up and a half in the micro, and I think that has just cost Ramen the game. I don't know if he could have held that even with the stim, but it would have been a lot closer. Reinforcements would have been able to contend with this. As it currently stands, I think we're just going to see a very fast GG. Ramen going to drill on. He's trying to extend play a little bit here, but this looks like it'll be an utter disaster. Honestly, those Masons shouldn't have even bothered trying to drill. The biggest issue that they face is against the Quas. They just keep firing away, so getting them out of dodge was actually the right move, I think. Drilling past instead of on top of, letting the combat units trade some of the blows there. Oh, man, it's down to 9 workers, man, and oh, he's even going to lose one more. That is so bad for Ramen. He is in the dumps. Kenoli was drolling behind that, making those workers very, very important, and he's also getting his Hydrith Den. Ramen's going to stick it out. He's going to put down an anchor. He's got nothing coming, nothing producing. He has no money. He's got 2, 3, okay, he's got more than that. 5 workers at the main, at the natural, and 6 on the main. Guys, this is dire stuff here. Kenoli would not be the only Zerg to defeat TopRamen in recent history. In the Tribunal stage, the first chance to qualify into the Battlement stage, Ramen went up against Jack Yelansky, who beat him 3-1. And Kenoli, I'm not saying he's going to. This is only a best of 3, though. And so if you drop this first map, Ramen's got to play perfectly insofar as he's got to post perfect dubs in the next set of matches here. I just don't see how he's going to be able to hold back all the Zerg in this map. He's going to have to think about that again next time. I feel like he might have even gotten kind of baited in to hatch first when he might have been able to just outscale it a bit differently. Or maybe he could have just not gone for that Ministry. I'm trying to think about things that one could do differently to avoid that. His Cyprian does survive on 5 HP, no less, so at the very least, he's weathered that storm of Quas. I'll tell you who doesn't care about the Cyprian nearly as much as the Hydra. Now, en masse, Cyprians do beat Hydras. If you're going up against like multiple Cestus-infected anchors, then you're also enjoying the armor boost to the anchor and reducing the damage of the Hydra and just having a good time with that. So like Terran can certainly hold against Hydra. But as you can see, Ramen cannot hold that choke anymore. He is going to start making workers, and very slowly. He's making a single Wraith. It looks like that'll be used for scouting. He doesn't really have the resources to willy-nilly harvest Vespian. He's actually not... Okay, he's harvesting Vespian with 1 worker right now. He's using it to make a Cyclops. Look at this army, man. Like, Kenoli can A-move him 6 ways from Sunday. Don't need a lot of APM. Don't need to worry about the fact that he had 2,000 minerals and you're making 24 Vorvs out of pop. Wild stuff. Wild. The Wraith is going to narrowly miss some of that. The bulk of the army, anyway, not yet revealed. Looks like we are in for an unceremonious execution. Kenoli charging the ramp. He doesn't even fire a shot before the GG comes out. Such is the power of his army. And there you go. Hydras with Vorvs. I mean, pretty much anything en masse would have cleared Ramen's position there. And now, the favorite for the entire Gauntlet stage, the #1 seed, has been slapped a little bit by Kenoli. We're going to need to see if Ramen can rally himself on Brainstorm, and then we will talk about our map veto a little bit more in depth, because that early game was crazy. Coming on into game number 2 here between Kenoli, our Pumpkin Zerg in the bottom left of Brainstorm, and TopRamen, our... Oh, is this Platinum? Platinum Terran in the top right. There you go, there you go. I know it's been a while since my last cast, but I'm glad to see I'm 100% on color guesses so far out of 2 games. We'll see if I can maintain that ratio. Kenoli does seem to be moving in for this hatch first relatively quickly. Or no, this one's an early scout. Okay. And then I guess he's going to reactively decide, is he hatch firsting or what? This is a stockade that comes out slightly faster than normal, it feels like. I wasn't quite watching the super early game, but maybe it's just the fact that he's not going mech first, right? And I always think about Fulcrum first and how it comes down slower than the first stockade. Of course, 1,000 APM for Ramen. We love that. We love to see that. Let's talk about the veto. So, as mentioned, Serenity was picked by Ramen. This is after a near impact ban. Smarty Cakes was adminning this series, so you don't invoke, aura loss points by banning the admin Jujic, who's like the chief admin here. He admins everything, it feels like. You don't, lose any aura from banning Jujic's maps, right? Smarty hasn't made a map that has gone to the map pool yet, so it's all good. Serenity is picked there, and Brainstorm, picked by Kenoli. We know he loves that, but he bans Check Stealer, which I'm not going to say is a Zerg map, but it's interesting. I guess it's probably because you can do some interesting macro things on that map, and maybe hatch first is like less valuable or what have you. By the way, he has gone hatch first here. And then meanwhile, we have Blackwater Bastion and Decapitation as the following bans, leaving Kingwa Valley, and I'm trying to think of the other map. Mass Destruction would have been also available, so Ramen deciding to avoid that. Actually, I guess a lot more maps would have been available thinking about it because, you know, Radium and so on would have been available because of that. So it's only a best of 3 instead of a best of 5, so you don't leave only one map in contention. The pool is more than halfway complete. The hatch is done at the natural, which means I once again get to bind our little camera hotkeys here so that I can tab through the naturals as well as the mains. Little bit of a pro tip, if you want to call it. It's not a pro tip in the sense that I'm a professional RTS observer. I am a pro no-go, though. So as a result, I can call it a pro tip with a 0. A pro tip for anybody who's trying to do some witnessing, observing, etc. You can use camera hotkeys, assuming the game supports it, in which case, if it doesn't, what the hell are you doing, dude? I'll play Cosmonarchy instead. And yeah, you can see here the Maverick Rush is coming in way higher, way harder, way faster this time around. And is Kenoli going to have a response to this? That's an interesting question. I love the little StarCraft 2-like rotation of resources there, of units there. And he is actually going to avoid losing too many workers. It looks like one will go down, the Quaz hatch, and then he burrows to avoid pain, including one of the Quaz. And so that will be a wrap. That was a lot of lost mining time. For 4 Mavericks, definitely cost efficient there. He kills, what, 1 worker? And that's about it, so... but still, even killing any workers is probably fine there for Terran. The lost mining time helps out immensely. Still going for that second ministry really fast, but, you know, on Brainstorm, there's no ramp, obviously, into your main base. Instead, you got this really tiny choke that would massacre pool units, and you got this area up here that you can try to fight over later on in the round, so to speak. We do have a Fulcrum coming in. So it's the same build as last time, just a little bit tighter. Earlier Hurricanes, definitely going to help out versus the quasi-heavy strategy that we've seen Kenoli go for. I love the Maverick count, that's for sure. I don't think that these quads are going to be able to do anything. Maybe they can clear the Huracan, but even then they're going to lose a lot to accomplish it. Yeah, they're basically going to get fully wiped, and the Huracan isn't even going to go down. We love the Firebat remodel by Solstice. We love the new Firebat unit concept by me. The Huracan is very, very useful, very durable, pretty fast, no stim pack. That's a Maverick exclusive now. But it does have, in what it lacks in damage from the Firebat of StarCraft 1, it makes up with in utility and tankiness, because it's a lot more durable with 2 armor, obviously, 90 health, etc. But it also burns any target to reduce its armor and do a little bit of extra DPS to it as well. The DPS is mostly for flavor, to be honest. Very rarely you'll see it get a kill. But the fact of the matter is the armor rend is enormously useful, so very good there. We have a wide variety so far of Zerg structure placements here. We got double Larvosk, we got double Circuith at the natural. And the worker count is still much favoring Ramen, who has landed at his natural base. I wonder what he's going to end up doing here, because all the unbuildable terrain kind of makes it more difficult to put down static defense. But an anchor will be put down. I love the Vulture making some mine laying happening. A lot of people have theorized, what if you could, you know, get extra mines without having to build more vultures? And I think it's good that vultures, like stylistically, I think it's good that vultures need to be rebuilt in order to make more mines, because vultures are kind of meant to be this expendable unit that you make a lot of. And so I think it's fine for them to be a little bit more, you know, okay, yeah, one and done as far as the mines go, right? Nice little burrows trap there, because now if Ramen wants to try to push through that, the Circuith will clear them out. Maverick has been hunting for any side bases. Meanwhile, Ramen sending out his Wraith. His star pad has been made. His Madrigal is out. So he's kind of covering himself against every threat that might be possible. And if we see him go for the Sieve in main and nat, we know he's going to do a 2-base tier 2 push, tier 2 timing, or some kind of like mass Covenant. And I think that would be the only other thing you would go for, like mass Gasfer in tier 1 is mass Covenant. But anyway, he's already got his Cestus. He's very well insulated versus enemy aggression. He's adding some anti-air defenses. 1 in each mineral line here so far for the Watchdog. And he has a Trojan, so he's also going to be thinking about dropping. His Wraith is going to be doing a little bit of heckling here. There are some Hydras that are coming that will be revealed. If his Wraith arcs upwards, he'll actually be able to click on this Hydrith and see that it's turning into a ski back. But instead, his Wraith does end up going down. I feel like that's pretty uncharacteristic of Ramen, but he is he's microing. He's doing his droll, his Trojan. There you go. I almost called it drolling. And then I almost called it dropship probably or something like that. But anyway, it's a Trojan. It's not a dropship. So he kills one worker, does a little mining time, denial. Unloading in the main, he really needs to get a scout to see what the tech is, right? If it's Zorkis, that's demands a different result, demands a different response than if it's Bactalisks. So those are the two common meta builds, and Bactalisks do seem to be what Kenoli wants, as he's making a lot of Hydras, and his ski-back is just about to finish. A little bit more anti-drop here over here, but you know, at the same time, saving that worker is definitely helpful. A little bit of extra resources lost, unfortunately, for Monsieur Kenoli, as he cancels it multiple times, but didn't want it to get focused down by an opportunistic Ramen. Oh, the drop is actually going to kill a Larvos. This is humongous. Slow on the ball there. Oh, wait, Ramen's overeaten. He's trying to get a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and oh my god, Kenoli has defended multiple Larvosks, and Ramen really gave that one away, it feels like. That was an opportunity. Each one of those 125 gas. That is not a cheap puppy. And yet it is still kicking, still alive. We have Phalanx production starting in earnest, as, of course, the scout on that drop did see the ski-backed. So we know that it's going to be something to deal with it's going to take something to deal with all the Bactalisks. I guess another thing that you need the Madrigals for, potentially, is like Mass Gorg or something like that, which Kenoli has been known to do quite a bit. Now trying to single-file conga line his way through the drip feed here into the middle of the map. The Antseal coming in for a scout. It's getting heckled quite a bit, but it only takes superficial damage as the shielding will start to regenerate. Antseals are very useful for the Terran army because whenever anything underneath that bubble, any other allied unit will also be shielded from damage. Now, an Omega epic thing that you might think about when it comes to the Antseal in the future is if you're ever flying over a neutral unit, that counts as an ally, and so the Zerg could theoretically attack the treasury while the Antseal is over it to drain the Antseal's energy. Super inconsistent, like, not inconsistent, but niche interaction. It wouldn't happen all the time. Now, it looks like a little bit of a deployment to try to save these treasuries. They do allow you for faster resource returns on the ridges, but mostly, oh my god, swarmed by Drolaths. Well, see you later, dude. Mostly, the reason why you might want to destroy those is to open up the pathing, right? So they also act as a bit of a natural wall. I don't see a Mason coming down to repair, so I think Ramen is just fine with that burning down. And I can always just find a harvest from, remotely. This is something I very rarely see on this map, and so to see somebody actually attempting to do it makes a lot of sense. I think this spawn is actually, funnily enough, a little bit more straightforward on the mining, by the way. This ramp is a little bit awkward to mine from, so a little bit of a imbalance on the symmetry, but most good maps have asymmetry to them, right, guys? Wink. Now, setting up for a nice Bactalisk siege here. He's got some Dwarves as well. I don't think that Ramen can really be busted, though. His econ has been really good. Kenoli is floating a lot of money, and we've got tier 2 started for Ramen. He is putting up his tier 2. I was talking about those sieves. We did see them eventually, so capping those Vespine ridges to basically give him the same amount of income as having double Geyser on both base. Really, really powerful stuff. Treasuries will end up, at least one of them will end up burning down, but he's not actually going to be taking this third base, on location, right? He's not going to be using the treasury for it. The third ministry is floating over. Saw that in construction earlier. He's already starting a fourth one, most likely earmarked for 12 o'clock. And look at this, dropping on top of the workers with a bunch of Hurricans. He's going to, I would love to leave like one Hurrican here, but it looks like all of the Hydras are in play, so he is going to have to deal with that. And now a hatch does get started on location here for Kenoli. Our Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenoli. The one Spraith is pretty useful here. Oh no, Ramen's not going to unload it. Oh, he was busy. He was doing other things. Ahmed Express has been destroyed. He's going to go ahead and bust these treasuries, and that will allow him to exit the side of the map much easier. His tier 2 is complete. Doesn't have a ton of money in the bank to actually immediately spend it down. One of the few times you want to play a little bit like a Zerg as Terran is when you finish your tier 2, because then you can immediately put down a ton of production facilities. So we'll see where Ramen wants to do that. At his third base doesn't suck in terms of, proximity to the base, right? Proximity to the rest of the map. However, it might suck in terms of actually getting sniped because Kenoli is coming in with a vengeance. Now, the Antseals have protected a lot of those bio and a lot of those unarmored phalanxes. The count is enormous, and it seems like the Bactalisks are going to be dealt with. There is no advanced bio here. The Zoryu is only now showing up. This is a unit enabled by the Zorka Shroud. that Kenoli is also making 7 Gorgor cores out of. And if the Madrigal count gets thinned out in the middle of this fight, well, in fact, Ramen will be vulnerable to that air switch. I love the idea of thinning out the anti-ground as well as the ground-based anti-air in order to eventually switch into air units, right? But we'll see, because Ramen has been really, really calculated with his scouting. He might actually spot the Gorgor cores before they leave the base. There's 7 of them here. He's got some watchdogs in a few spots. It feels like with more madrigals on the way, Ramen already knows this is a possibility, right? You just attacked me with a whole bunch of ground units. What are you thinking? What are you sniffing? And this is a mind game that Zergs can play when they're not being scouted. Are they going to go for the air switch, or are they going to go for more ground units? And what are you going to choose to respond to? Ramen now switching all of his stockades into mass vestry. Now that's interesting. He wants to just be able to pump out clerics, it looks like. And his captaincies, haphazardly placed though they may be, are starting to put up, you know, some nice tier 2 opposition here for the captaincies. Workers should probably be stop commanded here so they don't get splashed to death. But we do have 7 of them. The madrigals are out to start to whittle them down. We got more Gorgor cores swooping on in here. The one watchdog not going to offer too much resistance, but it does cause all of the Gorgor cores to clump up, and the madrigals are going to be enjoying that particular fight. Now we've got all the madcaps out as well. That can be massively useful. And by the way, the third base this whole time, not that it was very well saturated, has been being shut down and now sieged almost to death by this one pesky phalanx that no units went over to try to fight. So that Hatrosk is dead. Fully dead. It's out. The base that ended up getting mostly heckled in terms of worker count was actually one that was already depleted by Ramen. He set his 4th down to the bottom right instead of 12 o'clock, so the Gorgs did not spot it on their way into the main base. And Kenoli still struggling to spend all of his money. Ramen now setting up a forward post with a bunch of sentinels. Switching back into phalanx production, knowing that he's going to need that if there's been a Bactalisk reset. Really, Ramen is succeeding a lot in this game, I think in large part because he's been proactive. He scouted out the tech in terms of the timing. He went phalanx after his initial madrigals. Madrigals were there for air safety, and also they're pretty good versus pool units on the ground. They can be pretty good versus hydras if they are not being the primary targets. And I guess they're okay versus Zoryus as well. They don't allow the Riddler Roadcourse to really stay alive for very long. Now here comes the phalanxes. They do need to focus down the right targets here. We're seeing them kind of spread out in terms of what they're targeting. But some of them are after those hydras in the back line. And it looks like while the madrigals at the front will end up falling, they did enough by delaying things. And we've even got an apostle on the field to slowly start regenerating some of this fallen army. So it looks like only one or two, only one apostle ended up really doing anything. Now the phalanx with the Hatrosk kill to its name is going to start heckling the workers here. 9 kills before it ends up going down, and the Trojan could escape, but Ramen is still a little bit busy. Oh, he actually does end up getting it out of there. Nice. Money being spent down, quad cleric production, as well as continuing to make 5 madcaps a pop. Now he's going to go ahead and pressure down the treasuries. This temple is a spot that you might want to end up breaking if you're in this position trying to move across the map, because your units will get a little bit confused. And we'll see if he ends up doing that. I'm not sure that he's actually noticed. Everything was on the one control group. Starting to move forward, though. Sieging on the high ground makes a lot of sense. You get extra weapon range when shooting down a cliff in Cosmonarchy. Doesn't apply to melee units. The Hydra's trying to dive onto that Anseal. I think that it might be bait, honestly. The Apostle is nearby enough that it could potentially revive it, but no, that's it. Kenoli's third base denied. Never could expand again. GG is called because tier 2 is a little bit too much to come from. That might not have immediately looked like Ramen was going to win in that moment, but at that point it was very, very dire for Kenoli. So we're going to go into the decider. It is going to be Kingwa Valley. We started to expect Ramen to come back into form after that whack opening map there, and it looks like he just decided to play a little bit more measured after the quad Maverick rush. We'll see what happens in map number 3. Stay tuned. Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Game 3. Kenoli, Pumpkin Zerg in the bottom left. TopRamen. Ooh, Black Terran. No, Dim Gray Terran in the top right. All right, the Jimmy color threw me off. Only Jimmy is Dim Gray. Well, until he watches this video, and then he's like, oh, it's not a unique color. I gotta change it. Of course, everybody thinks they have to be the specialist Snowflake. I'm trying to think of colors I haven't seen people put in their configs. For a while, Hamster was Celadon. I don't know what he is now. Tyrian Purple, perhaps? That's a color I haven't seen too often. All right, Kenoli is going to be hatch firsting again. Again! 3 games in a row. So far, 50% win rate. So we'll see what that means, because Ramen is going to go ahead and scout out. This is Kingo Valley, a map by Biddy B. Kind of similar in some ways to Derelict, if you guys remember that map. Similar expansion layout. The mineral layout here is placed, I'm going to say deliberately now. I don't think it was initially placed this way with this in mind, but it hasn't been fixed after this has been reported, so I'm going to say it's a deliberate choice to keep it this way. It does slow resource income. So obviously it's symmetrical. It slows it in the same way. It's just that diagonals return slower than straight lines. And so when most of the mineral fields are diagonal, that means that you have to travel more distance. Therefore, it is slower. So with that in mind, that means that the builds should actually shape up a little bit differently on this map. It's one of the reasons why I was surprised so many people enjoy the map, because like the layout seems to be fine, but those mineral layouts, man, they completely change how the opening timings work. So you have to kind of push everything back a little bit. I'm sure you can make some kind of broader thought process of like maybe if the game was slower, then everybody would enjoy every map more, but I don't know if that's the reason why. Maybe it's just novelty. You never know. I think if every map were like Kingo Valley, we might have some problem. Or I guess there wouldn't really be much of a difference, right? Because everybody would know. Oh yeah, that's just how the builds work. Anyway, maybe it'll change later, or maybe it won't, but it's what we got for now. TopRamen is going to scout with a Hurakan first. That's kind of an interesting adaptation because the Quas are coming out. And I don't think there's any way that the Ahmed here is going to get any damage. So far, the timing hasn't really favored TopRamen in any punish, but he's got a lot of Mavericks back home. And he's going to go ahead and make a Ministry. So this time, the big change here is that he hasn't gotten any damage in the early game the way that he did on Brainstorm, and I guess technically on Serenity. But he's kept a very, very big army. So Kenoli's going to be moving across with his Quas. He could get crushed. And then what would we be really looking at that point, you know? Zeth's pouring out across the bridge. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. This cast brought to you by the coffee. Well, not entirely, but at least partially, because the coffee informs, the coffee page does inform a lot of what I do for Cosmonarchy. I know a lot of people are excited for the Escosi, the 4th race. I am working on them. Also working on all sorts of other updates. And we got Veek 7 working on Replay Kraken, a replay analyzer and parser. So that'll be very neat once it's done. So yeah, if you want to donate to help support project development, you can. The link is in the bottom right and in the description. But whenever I take a sip, I always think, I'm sipping on a drink that I was able to buy, at least in part because I have a coffee page. And so I got to talk about it. Kenoli charging forward with Zethvorv Quas. Kind of a scary comp, but I love the extra Hurakans that were made here by Ramen. They might end up piecing him up here, saving him. The stim is very, very good reactively. This is not a fight Kenoli is going to be able to win. He's only broken through the Hurakans now of all times. In fact, that last one living with 1 point of health and all the Mavericks staying alive. That is enormously impactful because we've now got a massive army coming and no combat units for Kenoli. He's got 0 and only 11 workers. This is catastrophic. Ramen making him look like a bit of a chump in this final game. The Cestus floating over the Ministry. Rather, the Ministry floating over Cestus being constructed. I mean, an insurance policy that is not necessary. And a very timely game ender here, I believe, we are about to look at, because apparently somebody decided it was good to mow the lawn right now. So that means that casting time is over for me for the foreseeable future. And Robin is making sure that the audio does not suffer too much. Charging forward, stimming after. He can be as sloppy and messy as he wants to be with this, but even then it's pretty clean regardless. That's a wrap. Kenoli's hatch first antics have been defeated. Dismantled. And Ramen is only seconds away from typing out? Question mark? No, Ramen is too well-mannered for that, but this is an easy clapagus. That's what we call this one. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this series between TopRamen and Kenoli. The last game was a bit of a dud, but obviously we do have an exciting set of matches ahead. This does mean, by the way, for those interested in what the bracket looks like overall, that with TopRamen winning this, he does move on into a very exciting stage called the qualification stage. Or rather, I should say that is a qualification series that he's going to be playing. He will play against the winner of our next matchup that we will cast, which is Shopkeeper Dog Terran versus Hapsea Protoss. And Unfortunately for Kenoli, as he's cast down to the lower bracket, he will have to make it through, looks like Blade Hollow, actually. Okay, so that will be an interesting matchup. We will see how that one works out. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow for more Cosmonarchy. Peace.